Hi, friends. Welcome back. I'm excited to have Lionel DeCur with me today. He is an 83-year-old veteran who has been doing tremendous research for the last 50 years. So we are going to get right into it. He's going to share what he knows about MK Ultra as well as other government projects. So Lionel, if you would introduce yourself and get us started, we are just going to jump into the thick of things.
Great. First of all, Madeline, I want to appreciate that you've given me the opportunity to share some of my research with your audience. I'm an 83-year-old and have been doing research for over 50 years. 50 years ago, something set me off where I started doing research. And what I started doing is cutting out articles in the newspaper, finding what I could online and everything. Of course, when I first started, the internet wasn't like it was today. So most of my things were reading newspapers in the community and in Dallas and other places. Uh, I'm also a U.S. Army infantry veteran that spent most of my 2 years at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, as a basic training company commander on Tank Hill during the Vietnam War. I have no service overseas, so I came in through ROTC after I got my degree in college.
Okay.
So if you would like, I could tell you how I got started.
Yes, please share with that, or share with our audience how you got started, because what this did is it rolled into 50 years of being down the rabbit hole.
Right. This is
Okay.
what keyed it off for me. And back then, uh, I didn't really have an understanding of things. But this is how I started. What started me going on, what was really going on in the world, was that when I read an article of President Nixon's motorcade that occurred in Caracas, Venezuela. At the time, he was vice president and he was making a 1958 Goodyear tour of South America. The bystanders on the side were throwing things at his car, and then they stormed his car and tried to turn it over. My thoughts at the time is, why in the world would these people be doing this when the United States was sending them so much aid to help their country out? And how naive I was back then,
Were you
because
in,
we
oh, I'm
go
sorry, were you in the military at that point or?
no,
Okay.
this was after my military. I was in the military in 66 and 67.
Okay. I'm sorry, please continue.
No, anytime. Uh, but I just couldn't understand why they were doing this to our vice president when we had sent them so much aid. But we were really sending aid to keep those dictators in power and to help out the elites there. And it wasn't anything about the people at all. Uh, there are many individuals and advocates like yourself that are doing research on various subjects. This is very important, but it's my opinion that all advocates must become familiar with what others are doing, and there's so many others that are doing several things, and let me talk about some of those.
Okay.
In your case, you're advocating for MK Ultra victims and information about the Mormon Church. There are some individuals that are advocating to stop endless wars like Vietnam, like Grenada, like all the wars that have happened, because those in powers are funding both sides of the war and making money off of those wars. There are some individuals that are advocating for neglect, abuse, and harm that are being done to our loved ones in nursing homes. And I'm also a big advocate in that. And I belong to a lot of groups in that. Dignityfortheage.org is one of them, and would love for any of your members to join their particular states, because we have made chapters in each and every state, each and every province in Canada and several countries, and then individual groups like young adults that are in nursing homes. So that would be great. And
I
then
will
another.
I'll include that information in the description so people will know how to get a hold of you. And just for the record, you do not come from a Mormon background, correct?
No.
Okay. So
I am from South Louisiana. I should be Catholic, but my mother was Methodist. But I don't believe in any organized religion.
okay.
I'm more for my individual belief in God and Jesus and what I do, but I respect everybody's having their religious rights.
So the reason I wanted to clarify that is I just wanted to make sure that the audience understands that you have no particular bias here. You are just an individual who served a couple of years in the military, and you've been researching and learning and truth seeking over the years, and whatever you've come across and been able to corroborate is what you've incorporated into your belief system without any prejudice, correct?
Right.
Okay.
How I got in contact with you is that under Google, you can have Google News alerts. One of my news alerts is MK Ultra. So anytime something is put on the news about MK Ultra, I'll get an alert. And it brought up one of your individuals with one of the women that was talking about her experience with MK Ultra.
Okay, great. Tell us what you know.
Okay. First thing I want to do is talk about MK Ultra, but let me show you a few books first that your audience may not know about. This is Transformation of America. And this is a story about Kathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips. And it would be great if your audience could get that book.
I do know that many of the readers many of the listeners have read that, some not. So I'm glad that you're advocating for that book because it's chock full of information.
Right. The other one I'm sure many of them have also is this one, Thanks for Your Memories. And it, is about Bryce Taylor. And you'll see a picture of Bob Hope on there. In my research, I found out that there are a lot of individuals that we may think are good, but are bad. And Bob Hope is one of them because he was a handler. Also, there are a lot of bad individuals that we may think are bad, but are actually good. But I've got a lot of other books that I've researched and articles. I could spend the next 24 hours. We could sit here and I could show you book after book and article after article. This is who was the head of the MK Ultra, and this is a good book to read. Excuse me, I don't talk much, so I'm going to do a lot of coughing. But while I'm going to hear, let me show you a couple of the newspaper articles, because this is my main research and what I like to bring to different audiences. And I've appeared on several different shows, and I try and bring things that I learned, back in the 70s that, most audiences won't be familiar with. But this is an article that I cut out about how the CIA got involved in our churches and everything. Then another article is about how the Army used cows in Fort Worth for different tests. They sprayed them, the cows in the Fort Worth Fat Stock Show Rodeo to see how far those chemicals would go.
On that first article that you showed, was it specific to a church or was it churches in general?
Just churches in general.
Okay. Okay.
Then another article is Turner urged CIA to notify the CIA about the guinea pigs. As many guinea pigs, that they experimented on. Probably the thing that one of the things that has interested me the most is this article here about family of radiation test victim now realizes significance. This was Mr. Allen, who was a porter in Chicago, and getting on the train as it was leaving, he slipped and fell and he broke his leg. And he went to a CIA hospital and they injected him with plutonium to see how long he would live. And there were 17 other individuals in that particular experiment they were doing. They injected them with different amounts of plutonium to see how long they would live.
I think it's really important that you mention that, and that we also help the audience understand that this is not a one-off scenario, that the government has been experimenting on citizens for at least 100 years.
Oh, for way over 100 years. All of this goes back, and all of this ties in together. Everything, okay. It's good versus evil.
Yes, I believe that.
Excuse me, my coughing. And this is a picture of him and his wife, and the story about that I cut this out. This was in the Dallas Morning News, Friday, December 31st, 1953. And then one other one I'll show you. Dallas, close to Dallas is a community named Cedar Hill, and it has the towers, all the TV towers on it, and they sprayed chemicals off of there. But I've got article that this is just a minute part of the spraying, because they sprayed in ships off the California coast. They sprayed chemicals off of Corpus Christi with ships. They sprayed in subways. They sprayed everywhere. But those are the main books that I have and everything about what is going on. But I'll just show you a couple more. Medical Apartheid. This is a very interesting book, and the story about Mr. Allen is in there. And I got to know Mr. Allen's daughter, not very well, but they're from Italy, Texas, which is about 15 miles from me. But a section of this talks about Mr. Allen.
When you showed his picture, I was wondering if that was the same story, because I read that book a few years ago. And it's just atrocious what the medical industry has done. And I call it an industry because it is, but it's atrocious what they've done, experimenting on Blacks, on poor people, in particular. A lot of people like to talk just about the racism part of it, but actually, if you couldn't afford medical care, you were free game to them.
Right. They experimented on a whole lot of Blacks out of proportion, but it was mainly because they didn't have the ability. It all goes back, and I'm going to pronounce things wrong because I've lived in many different places, but it all goes, you can go back to the Tuskegee experiments in Alabama, when the doctors inflicted a whole large group of Black men with syphilis and did nothing. They had the means to control it, but they just wanted to wipe them out.
Yeah.
Another interesting book is this one. Excuse me. This is Jesse Curry, who was a police chief of Dallas at the time that Kennedy was assassinated. I was worked in Oak Cliff, which is part of Dallas. And after the assassination, Jesse came by and came and spoke at the Civitan Club that I was a member of while I worked at the YMCA there. And he did not believe that Kennedy was killed like the government said. In this book is a picture of Kennedy in his motor vehicle when he was shot from the back, and it came out his throat. And also in that picture, you can see Oswald standing in the doorway of the school book depository.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to get a drink because I'm fixing to cough again. Excuse me. Okay. Now let me go on, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Let's see. Okay. And I'm asking this question to your audience, and I know they can't answer back.
Okay.
But who was the government appointed doctor for Jack Ruby when he was in jail for killing Oswald? Of course, we all know who Jack Ruby was. He shot Oswald and then was put in jail. But who was his court appointed doctor? Also, who was a government appointed doctor for Timothy McVeigh? And we all know who Timothy McVeigh was. He was a prime suspect for the Oklahoma City bombing. Who was a government appointed doctor for Patty Hearst when she was in jail? Now, Patty Hearst was a granddaughter of American publisher William Hearst. She first became known for the events following her 1974 kidnapping by the Liberation Army. She was found and arrested 19 months later after being abducted by the group, and she was a fugitive from the government. She held up banks, and it shows her with a gun and everything. But who was her doctor? Who was the doctor for Sirhan who killed Robert Kennedy, or was accused of killing Robert Kennedy? Who was a government appointed doctor of Jimmy Shaver? This is one that most of your individuals won't know about. On the night of July 4th, 1954, San Antonio, Texas, the community was shaken by the rape and murder of a 3-year-old girl. The man accused of these crimes was Jimmy Shaver, an airman at the nearby Lackland Air Force Base with no criminal record. Shaver claimed that he lost his memory and don't remember. But who was his doctor? Okay, who was the doctor of Charles Manson? We all know who Charles Manson was, who was a cult leader who that was based in California in the late 60s. They committed a series of murders. Sharon Tate was a well-known actress at the time that they killed. Who was the doctor of Marilyn Monroe? Who was the doctor? Now, this is going to seem silly to some people, but it's not silly. Who was the doctor of Tusco the elephant at the Oklahoma City Zoo in 1962? And all of these you can be looked up on various sites and backed up. And of course, I sent you to a link to a lot of these. Mm-hmm. But of all of these people, the doctor of all of these people was Dr. Jolly West. Who did Jolly West work for? He worked for this man right here, the head of MK Ultra. Okay.
Cindy Gottlieb is who you're pointing to, correct? Right underneath your fingers?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Yep, there you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
Now, Dr. Jolly West is someone that I've researched a whole lot and was quite interested in. He was an expert hypnotist. Okay. Isn't it strange that he was a doctor of Timothy McVeigh, of Jack Ruby, of Sirhan, all these people that killed individuals? Did he perhaps hypnotize some of these individuals to do what they did, and they were mind control subjects? I would think, in my opinion, that he was.
That sounds pretty suspicious. And I have a particular interest in the Oklahoma City bombing because I went to school with Mike Fortier. Did I tell you that?
Yes, I think you did mention it one time.
Yeah. So, and he's now in the witness protection program. He did 10 years and then they moved him into the witness protection program, but he was like 2 years ahead of me in school and his locker was like literally 6 lockers next to mine. And so when this came first hit the news, I was just, they were interviewing, they interviewed my dad because he was law enforcement. They interviewed a lot of people at my high school. So I was just blown away by that. And I am not surprised at all to see the connection with Dr. Jolly West.
If one of the greatest documentaries is about the Oklahoma City bombing, is a documentary called A Noble Lie.
Mhm. Yeah.
And A Noble Lie, you can do a search on YouTube and find it. You got to do a lot of scrolling, but you can find the complete thing. But in there, it tells so much. It tells about one of the first individuals on the site after the bombing was a police officer, and he was later found, and they said he uh, killed himself by suicide, but he was murdered. But and in that Noble Lie also is one of the places where it mentions about Timothy McVeigh having a doctor called Dr. Jolly West. But A Noble Lie is a tremendous video to see.
And I will include that link in the description box, everybody, so you don't have to go searching for it. So it'll be there.
Great. Now, let me and we didn't get to bring up the video about I think I skipped over it. Hospital protocol kills or protocolkills.com. One of the groups I'm associated with is a group by protocolkills.com. And can you bring that up? It is the number one.
Okay, give me just a second and I am going to access that for us.
That's all right.
Okay, can everybody see that? Can you see that on your end?
Yes, I can see it.
Great. Go ahead and say what you need.
Okay, if you'll look up there on the top right part, it gives the different stories. There's about 400 stories. There's several individuals that play an important role in this. Greta Crawford is the one. Yeah, that's the different stories.
Okay.
You can click on those and learn how our hospitals have been killing individuals in the hospitals with hydro. Excuse me. I'm having
Ivermectin?
say again.
Ivermectin?
The other one.
Remdesivir.
Yeah.
It's ivermectin that's the good one. Remdesivir is the poison.
Right.
Correct. Okay, got it.
And Greta Crawford is the one who developed this site.
Okay.
Greta and I know each other quite well. I appear on her group, Joey's Angels. Teresa Hernandez and her sister, excuse me, are the ones that have Joey's Angels, a Facebook group where every Wednesday night, like tonight at 7:30 my time, we'll be on there talking. And Greta and all of those will talk about if there's any individual that just lost a loved one, they'll have a time for everyone to share their grief and everything. And then at the end, they always give me the opportunity to bring an update on what's been happening as far as the deep state and all of that. So tonight, it's every Wednesday night, and you can go to the Facebook group, Joey's Angels, and find that.
So
But
these are individuals that have all died in the hospital due to
yes,
medical malfeasance. Okay.
it's the stories by one of their loved ones,
Okay.
and they name doctors' names, they name hospital names, they're fearless. They'll name the doctor's name, they'll name that it's Baylor Hospital or Methodist Hospital or what. Greta herself was caught COVID, and they tried to kill her, but miraculously she escaped and didn't die. But she and individuals like Laura and Teresa and her sister, and there's so many others. There's a lot of veterans spouses on this group. Usually we have about 22 or 23 individuals on there that'll talk and share things. It's a tremendous group.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes. Okay, let me see if I can go back and remember where I was. Okay, let's talk about I would like to ask your audience if they knew who Bertha Champagne is. She was the nanny, and she died on September the 29th, 2003. Now, who was she the nanny to? She is described as a longtime babysitter for Marvin and Margaret Bush's two children, a son, Walker, 13, and daughter, Marshall, 17. She was found crushed to death by her own vehicle in a driveway in front of the Bush family home in the Alexander section of Fairfax County. Champagne reportedly lived at the Bush family home. Now, who was the husband of Margaret Bush? Margaret was the wife of Marvin Bush. Who is Marvin Bush? We all know who George Bush is. We all know who Jeb Bush is, former governor of Florida. Very few people know that there's a Marvin Bush, and he was the one where this nanny was crushed to death by her own car. Kind of sounds suspicious to me. Yes, Marvin Bush was a principal administrative employee, and I'm going to mispronounce this. I almost didn't graduate from college because I couldn't pass voice and diction. And so I had to take the course 3 times, and finally she wanted to pass me so I wouldn't take it again and mispronounce all these words. But anyway, Marvin Bush was a principal administrative employee of Securichrome until 1999, and President Bush's cousin, Wirt Walker III, was the CEO of Securichrome from 1999 until after the attack on the Twin Towers. So what I'm saying here is that they provided the security for the Twin Towers, the airports where all these planes were. At various times, they had blackouts at the building, and they didn't have any security, and there were different groups coming in to that Twin Towers, and in my opinion, they were using thermite that brought down those towers.
Is it Dr. Judy Wood who has a book who goes over that?
Yeah, I have that book, but it's in a different room. But Dr. Judy Wood has a real thick book, page after page of pictures. She talks about energy weapons, that the planes were the buildings were brought down by energy weapons.
If I knew you were going to bring that up, I would have had my copy sitting here for the people, because it's a big, thick documentation.
It would take me about 3 seconds to get it if you'd like for me to show it.
Yep, you go right ahead.
Okay.
This is called pivoting, so we're going to roll with it because this is really important information, what happened at 9/11. Because although these things happened years ago, what's happening right now, we didn't get here by accident. They've stepped us step by step by step, they've been turning up the boiling pot of water. There it is. So tell us about, where did the towers go?
Okay. We'll never know until a little bit later what really happened.
Mhm.
But this woman is, I wish you could see the pictures, the research. Did you say you have this book?
I do. It's in a
Okay,
massive bookshelf somewhere.
you know how detailed is. One of the most interesting parts of this book are the I'm trying to think of what they call the cars, toasted cars.
Mhm.
There were cars that were way away from the Twin Towers that caught on fire, that just like half the car was burned up, but the other half was in perfect condition. But what she's saying is that we used energy weapons to set the Twin Towers on fire. Also, Building 7. Are you familiar with Building
Yep.
7? A
Yes.
lot of people don't know that there was a third tower, and I think it was 42 or 47 stories tall. Richard Gage with Architects and Engineers is a great site to go to. But, you know, uh, she believes, Dr. Wood believes, that it was energy weapons.
Mhm.
Of course, you can see about the wildfires, fires in California. A lot of people say that was done by energy weapons. The fires in Canada that are going on now could be by energy weapons, and so there's a lot of discussion on that.
Yes. I would recommend that everybody get that book and read that if you really want to have a leg up on what's going on, because they
Right,
use the energy weapons now for a number of things, and they also tweak it because they can use that voice to skull technology to control individuals as well, which is an electronic form of MK Ultra.
right.
So, yeah.
Okay, let's go into one other thing that probably your audience haven't gotten into,
Okay.
and Quaker Oats in MIT, Massachusetts Institute of the big, college for all the brainy so-called people. These they took some children with special needs and they fed them uh, radio lace oatmeal, and to see what it would do to those children. How cruel is that when you take children that are special needs, and some of them want special needs, and feed them radioactivity, material. Uh, but there's a lot of, all you have to do is do a search for Quaker Oats and Massachusetts Institute of Technology and everything. But if you want to go to that video number 3 that says Smithsonian History, Spoonful of Sugar, if you could turn that on. It's not a video. It'll just be some words.
Okay, which one do you want? The Smithsonian?
Yeah.
Okay. And then where would you like me to go?
Okay, scroll down a little bit. You can see the tie-in there, and I can't read. I'm gonna have to turn it on my screen.
There's a video that's unavailable.
Let me read this.
Okay.
You can just hold your thing there.
You want me to stop scrolling?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Massachusetts School for the Feeble-Minded housed mentally disabled children along with those who had been abandoned by their parents. Conditions at the school were often brutal. Staff deprived boys of meals, forced them to do manual labor, and abused them. And what happened, they did experiments on 74 of the children ages 10 to 17 as a part of a study. They were fed with oatmeal and milk laced with radioactive iron and calcium. In other experiments, scientists directly infected the boys with the thing. But it goes on and on. I'm not going to read all of that. But if your listeners do a search for, Quaker oats, MIT, radioactive material, those articles will come up.
I will provide that link in the description notes, so you guys will have all the information, and the references that he mentions will be in the description notes to make it nice and easy for everyone.
Great. Then the last thing, let me get out of this for a second and see if I can get to my notes. Excuse me. When you don't have anyone at home to talk to and you start talking, your voice goes away. That's not coming up. I'm just going to ad-lib this with the last video, and then if you'd like to answer any questions, and I can give you some other information.
Okay.
But one of the most interesting videos is called A Hole in the Head. And this is a little 5-year-old boy who, when he was 5 years old, he was taken to a hospital, he thinks it was, and a couple of nurses put a cap on his head, and then they burned a hole in his skull. Tell me how nice that is to treat people like that. He had to wear a hat on his head, and no one knew about that hole in his head. And he was in a choir, and one of the men in the choir found out because he came up to him and told him what had happened to him, and he made a video. And let's show that video, Hole in the Head.
Now, I am going to warn the listeners that about 1.5 minutes into the video, about 2 minutes somewhere in there, he takes the cap off. So if you are squeamish, which you can't watch Hollywood and not be okay with this, but if you're squeamish, I'm just letting you know that this is pretty intense. So let me pull this video up right here.
Can you expand that out on the right side? Yeah.
It's not really.
It's unavailable in the larger screen.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can do that.
Yeah.
My story is our story. Because I could not have had it done without you.
I met Vertus in the church choir. He really couldn't carry a tune very well. In fact, sometimes I would look to him and I would sing directly in his ear, and that way that would get him back on pitch.
What was so compelling for me was that here was a man who had never written a book or made a film before, because the love of his friend became a storyteller, became a filmmaker.
Any memories come to mind?
Right on him, being on a Saturday afternoon, if you find somebody having a broken down wagon, you take the hook on the iron hook, but make a wire, curve it, and then roll that hook down the hill or whatever. That's the only thing.
Roll the hook.
With that one. That's our dog. It's a black man that found it.
Mm-hmm.
Found it Flower Station.
This is amazing. Flower Station, the Black community played such an integral part in that whole process of freeing slavery.
Oh, yeah. They called this little community Freedom Village. You never thought much of the segregation. It was normal when we came, because that's all we knew.
I knew that something was wrong on this particular day. All of a sudden, he began to sob. He was sobbing uncontrollably. And he said to me as a child, 5 years old, I was experimented on. I was experimented on with radiation.
They had a little round beanie they put on her head, and the two girls stood behind a LED screen, and they pushed a button, and it seemed like I saw some flashes. And she told the other nurse, "Oh my God, I'm giving him too much."
Think any sort of description of what has occurred and what Vertus lives with on a daily basis is nothing short of incredible.
Are you angry?
No. But if you're angry, that means your heart's not right. God's grace that kept me here. I think he wanted this to go.
Mm-hmm.
I think he wanted to go. To show the magnitude of his grace. Because it should be.
I'm really speechless.
And do you know what, Madeline, is when you see something like this, like you said, you're speechless. And when individuals get to see this on a full screen, they're going to be much more touched and hear the music and everything at the beginning. This is just a small part of what has been going on to little children all over the world, to adults, to blacks, to Hispanics, to those in Africa, when all of us should join together as individuals in every country and join forces. There's an elite power group that are controlling our lives, that are making money off of us. But this is all a very small part. As you said earlier, you know how much research I have and links and everything. But this is a small part. You know, most of your audience wouldn't know who Freeway Ricky Ross is. They need to find out who Freeway Ricky Ross and how he was tied into the drug cartels. Your
Can you
audience
give them
needs
a little intro?
about who he was.
Yes.
Yeah. Freeway Ricky Ross was a drug dealer that supplied the drugs to our inner city youth and all over the country. In fact, he was employed by the CIA. They brought drugs down. The CIA had a lot of planes that would bring drugs into the United States. I'm going to get off on another side issue. If you'll look up Mena, Arkansas with Bill Clinton and what happened at the Mena, Arkansas, and I've got a whole Word document on that. I don't know if I sent that to you or not, but you know, there's so much about what went on at Mena, Arkansas, them bringing drugs in and flying weapons out. But Freeway
And this
Ricky,
is when Bill Clinton was governor, by the way.
right.
This is when it started at Mena Airport. So just wanted to add that little bit in. So go ahead.
Right. But the overall point with Freeway Ricky Ross, he's a real easy one to do a search for. Just put in Freeway Ricky Ross, drug running CIA, and that story will come up. Of course, we all need to know more about Mr. Allen, and I've got a whole bunch of that on the plutonium files and how he was first discovered by someone that got the Nobel Peace Prize and all of that. We need to know about Child Protective Services. That's not a good thing. I've got a whole Word document on Child Protective Services. General Flynn's sister is a big one pushing for the truth in that. We all need to know who General Stubbeline was. And he was the head of all intelligence in the United States. He had retired when 9/11 happened, but him and his wife, Dr. Rima Lambo, we need to know about that. She got in contact with someone that was in the elites, and they told her about the COVID shots about 10 years before that happened.
I'm unfamiliar with those two.
Oh, with that?
Yes,
that's
I'm unfamiliar with those names, so I'm gonna have to
I
look that up
will send
myself.
you a Word document on that. You need to know about General Stubbeline because there's a good video about, one of his subordinates. He was retired. He was in Hawaii at the time, but one of his a woman general, I think she was a general, contacted him and told him that 9/11 and told him to go turn his TV on. And he turned it on and he said, oh, that couldn't be happening. He switched channels and, it was all about, it was showing what was going on. But he was the head of intelligence of the whole United States Army at the time. And he got to digging into it and he said, there's no way what the government is telling you is the truth. There's no way that a so-called plane hit the Pentagon. But you really need to look up General Stubbeline and then his wife. There's a tremendous love story with his wife because she was kind of the opposite of him. She didn't believe in war, people being in the military, but they got together. And but Jesse Ventura has a tremendous video on her. Jesse's at an airport and she flies in and
I have seen that. She flew in, they have a conversation, and she immediately leaves.
Flies out, yeah.
Okay. Yes, go ahead and tell us about that.
That's General Stubbeline. But she flies in because she had been in contact. She said it was the head of a foreign country. Excuse me. But she flies in and tells Jesse that they are going to bring up a vaccine. Now, this was 10 years before, COVID and everything. And she tells about it and everything and then flies out. But she has countless videos, on YouTube and other places about that. But to make it, you've got to know about the two of them's relationship, General Stubbeline and her. She was a doctor, but she didn't treat people with the drugs by the pharmaceutical industry. But I could go on, but if some people want to see the research, I just formed a Facebook group called Rabbit Holes for Truthers. And if anyone clicks on that, you can go down. I guarantee you there's over 2 or 3 million rabbit holes that you can find just about every subject. My main group that I have stuff on is 50 years of research too. But these are all Facebook groups. But I've got 50 years of research to CIA, 50 years of research to FBI, 50 years of research to Kennedy, 50 years of research to human guinea pigs, 50 years of research to 9/11, 50 years of research to Dr. Martin Luther King, 50 years of research to Illuminati secret societies, 50 years of research to MK Ultra, 50 years of research to indigenous children, and that's a good one that most people don't know about. 50 years of research to Oklahoma City bombing, 50 years of research to royal families.
That's a lot. So let me ask you, because the majority of my viewers come from an LDS background, and so they're just discovering some really nasty truths within the LDS religion. But it's much deeper than that. And for those people who are looking for the truth on this reality, the rabbit hole, like you said, is so deep. Where would you recommend that somebody gets started?
Oh gosh.
Because one thread leads to 1,000 others.
Yeah, it's not important where you go. It's just important that you go, even if you don't believe.
Yeah.
You know, if you say, "Oh, that's ridiculous," that I could tell you things that people that my family that know me think that I belong to cults and everything. It just dig into it. Find something you have an interest in, and one thing will lead you to another. And be fearless. I appreciate you, and I know what you've been through, and you brought me to tears. The story, you know, in regards to your son and everything, and that's why I think you would have such a great tie-in with the Joy's Angels group, because they're all suffering like you have. And if you ever get a chance, go to that group, and I'd love to introduce you to them. Uh, but to answer your question, just find out where you think there might be a possibility that you have an interest, and jump in, and it's going to lead you from one thing to the other. And keep in mind, it's good versus evil.
Mhm,
It's the people against the elite.
mhm.
Uh,
And I think it's really important that people understand that you have to be flexible in your thinking. So you may have a particular paradigm, belief system right now, but as more information comes your way, you have to be willing to change your views and to expand your awareness, because the learning process requires that.
oh, yeah. You know, to go back to one other subject, uh, I was fortunate and blessed to be in the right time to help solve part of the Kennedy assassination.
Mhm.
Years ago, the House Assassination Committee was trying to find out who the umbrella man was. And I went to a meeting. It was a YMCA meeting at the school administration building, and there were these other individuals showing up. They were a bunch of attorneys, and I knew they weren't part of my YMCA board. We were having a fundraising meeting, and they said they were there because Penn Jones was going to show the Zapruder film. And at the time, excuse me, Pam was talking before we decided not to have our meeting and go to their meeting. And so he showed the Zapruder film, and I was mad at Penn Jones for him to even say that our United States would do such a thing, kill our own president. So, like you say, we have to be flexible, look at it, and dig into it, and then make up your mind. Don't believe my research or what I'm telling you. Don't believe what Madeline, your group shouldn't believe. What, look into it, study it, but stay open-minded, because things could be going on. But anyway, I was fortunate to. It's a long story, and I think I sent it to you about, you know, who the how I found out who the umbrella man was, and Penn Jones was one of the early pioneers in getting to the truth.
Well, maybe what we should do is have you back on and you can go through the Umbrella Man saga.
We can give it a try. At 83, let me tell you, things don't get any easier, and I've got a couple other shows, you know, but I'd be glad, because we've got to do what we can to get the word out. And so I would do my best if you would like to have me back, and
Yes, absolutely. You are a wealth of information. I think it's important that people see you as an example of what it takes. You've been through the indoctrination program of school, and for a lot of people, college or trade schools, and we have constant inundation with news and entertainment. But the real education comes from the discipline and the deprogramming of the so-called education, and we have to really educate ourselves and we have to be disciplined about it. And you have put in 50 plus years of such education. And so I think you're a real wonderful example of what everybody needs to do for themselves in order to understand what's happening here.
Right. And like I say, don't believe me, do
Mhm.
your research and then just use common sense about things. If there's a lot of things going on in our churches, and I'm not talking just about the Mormon church, I'm talking about the Catholic church, I'm talking about the Methodist church, all these big mega churches. If there's smoke there, something's wrong. If there's something about 9/11, all of these things happening about 9/11, a building falling, building 7 in its own footprint, endless wars, there's smoke everywhere. So
Mhm.
if there's smoke everywhere, look into it. There's something going on about this Dr. Jolly West. There's something, common sense will tell you something is going on.
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here and sharing this information with the audience. What I'm going to do is, as previously mentioned, I'm going to put all the information, all the links in the description box of where they can reach your website and get a hold of that research so they can start their own descent down into the rabbit hole, and many of them have, which is fantastic. So thank you so much. We will keep in contact. And just for your guys' information, I have started a backup channel on Rumble. It's under EdenRocks, EdenRocks. I just barely started putting up 2 videos. So I'm going to start uploading. Anything I do on YouTube is going to go on the back to the backup channel. So just keep a lookout for that. As usual, you can reach me at galacticstoryteller@gmail.com. Like and subscribe. And then for your comments, please be polite. You guys have done such a great job with your comments and adding to the conversation. I really appreciate that. For those who have a different opinion, I appreciate that as well. You guys have done really well at adding resources and facts and things to back up your statements, which is what keeps the dialogue moving along. So thank you. And we will see you in the next video.
Thank you.